from the very beginning, and we didn't call it the foundations then, that's just what Dr. Curry always addressed. He always addressed, he said, no matter what the problem is, you always address digestion, minerals, fatty acids, and blood sugar regulation. And I added hydration in later years when I was developing the FFN program before MTP program. Hydration is really, really important too. But I mean, I think that's one thing that I think sets us apart as nutritional therapy practitioners from other practitioners who are doing nutrition, is that a lot of times, and I don't really mean this as a criticism, because I think, if you have a choice of using a natural nutrient or natural herb or using a pharmaceutical, I mean, why wouldn't you use the one first?
Of course.
But a lot of practitioners are doing what I would call greenolopathy. So somebody has depression, I mean, you could use an SSRI, or you could use St. John's wort. And St. John's wort often work, but it's basically doing the same thing that the SSRIs are doing, but in a more natural way. And that is not addressing the foundations. The reason people are depressed because they need St. John's wort or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They're depressed because they have long-standing weaknesses in the foundations that haven't been addressed. They're not digesting, their blood sugar's whacked out, they don't have the fats to support good brain health, they're dehydrated, and they lack minerals like lithium and magnesium that just make people think better.
Yeah, I want to introduce people really quickly to that concept that we learned, that north to south process, and why we do that. So we address things, obviously, diet first. We have the nutrient dense, properly prepared whole foods, and then after that is digestion and blood sugar are usually the two things that are found the most often in people. And as you said, they'll come in, kind of with all these symptoms and all these things that they want help out with, and they will gladly, take whatever it is that you recommend to them, supplement wise. But the people who are only doing the supplements don't really get good long-term results. So if you could kind of unpack the foundations and a little bit about why, that would be awesome.
Yeah, well, the most important foundation, and I want to be perfectly upfront. I've been in the nutritional supplement business this whole time.
Yeah.
For the first 5 years with standard process, then with biotics, and I think that nutritional supplements can be extraordinarily valuable, but in the long run, you can never really make permanent changes in somebody until you change their diet. And the diet that most people on, I mean, you've had this experience. You ask anybody how's their diet, they'll almost always say, well, it's not that bad. Right. And then you have about a diet history, and what they think is not that bad, and it makes you cringe. They're having English muffin with jam, and a big glass of orange juice, and a latte, all sugared up and stuff for breakfast. And they think that's good because they're getting their serving of fruits and they're getting their grains that they need. And they're getting orange juice and jam. There's two fruits and a serving of grains. Right off the bat, they're getting a head start on the day. But of course, as we know, that's a terrible way to start your day. So the key is the nutrient-dense whole food diet. And having said that, of course, everybody's a little bit different, and the perfect diet for one person is not necessarily the perfect diet for somebody else. Okay. So that's where the expertise of a nutritional therapist really comes into play, is to help determine what's the perfect diet for that specific individual. So that's always the beginning. But having said that, then there's a lot of people that go, well, I don't believe in supplements. I'm just going to do it all with food. And I'm not denigrating that, and I always wish them good luck, but it can be pretty hard because people have deficiencies. They're really addicted to their bad food. So if you're completely vitamin deficient, you're going to be craving foods. I have many personal experiences with my own clients and doctors that I've worked with who just said they just didn't see how they could give up French fries, but when we get them on a good fatty acid supplement, then the next thing you know, they don't even like French fries.
Wow.
I mean, I know from my own experience, years I was traveling, I'd walk into a McDonald's and I thought that smelled so good, that rancid grease smell, because I was so fatty acid deficient. Now, if I go into McDonald's, which I'll say, anybody ever sees me going to a McDonald's, it's only for one reason, that's to use the restroom, because that's a good restroom break. But anyway, I go in there now and the smell of that grease is sickening to me because it's obviously so rancid and so unnutritive that now that my body is fatty acid sufficient, I can actually distinguish between the smell of good fats and the smell of bad fats. So really, the nutrient-dense whole food diet does address all of our other 5 foundations, which are the digestive system, always thinking north to south, blood sugar regulation, which always involves taking a look at the function of the liver, the pancreas, and the adrenal glands, and those very, very important fatty acids. Contrary to public opinion, most people are fatty acid deficient. They're getting way too much of the wrong kind of fats, but not enough of the right kind of fats. I could do an hour on that, but I won't.
Right.
And then, of course, minerals, they're so very, very critical, particularly in pregnancy, obviously. The idea is that, women have to get lots of calcium, but there's other things even more important than calcium, and that's the things that make the calcium work. Most people are getting too much calcium, not enough. And then there's all the other cofactors and things like that. And then, last but not least, hydration. People just aren't drinking enough water and getting the electrolytes that they need to keep their body hydrated. And it's always, always important, but all these things are particularly important during pregnancy. And so...
right. Yeah, you mentioned
let me give you an
earlier
example.
the adrenal health, that pregnancy can exacerbate adrenal problems. Can you kind of explain that a little bit for us?
Particularly the diet, the high glycemic diet is just terrible on adrenal function. So, but they're getting by. Maybe they get a little dizzy when they stand up. Maybe they got a little sensitivity to sunlight. Maybe they got a little unilateral back pain or something like that. But it's not wrecking their life. But then when they get pregnant, all of a sudden, that's putting another huge stressors on adrenal function. Mm-hmm. And here's a phenomenon we've all seen: is a woman will, when she first gets pregnant, just like with my wife, they're exhausted and they just feel terrible, and they might even be, moderately depressed and all these types of things. But somewhere, usually towards the middle or the end of the second trimester, all of a sudden, life becomes a beautiful thing. They get their vitality back. They have that middle pregnancy kind of push. And they love being pregnant. They can't wait to have this baby so they can have another one, And so what Dr. Curry's explanation of this was that they've gone into pregnancy hypoadrenic, and now the pregnancy has caused their adrenals to be even more tired, that they got this exhausted feel. The body's doing all kinds of things. It's detoxifying, which is causing all this morning sickness, and it's putting all this extra stress on the adrenal glands, and now there's starting to be pressure against the stomach. So all these things are exacerbating these long-standing underlying problems that this mom didn't really recognize. Pregnancy, the baby's adrenals are finally fully formed, and the placental barrier, this is a two-way street. So the mom shares hormones with the baby, but the baby shares hormones with the mom. So now the mom is getting a nice big hit off of baby's adrenals. And that's why she feels she hasn't felt adrenal function. I know. Then you stop and think about it. And see all these moms go, "Oh yeah, I'm so happy being pregnant." But the problem is now when the baby's born, the baby's hypoadrenic. Mom's all of a sudden had her adrenal support ripped away from her, and this causes a number of postpartum issues that can be really devastating. The baby is typically without that adrenal function. They don't have the natural inflammatory, so they get colicky. the mom, all of a sudden, she's gone from this state of almost semi-euphoria, all of a sudden to like worse adrenal function than she's ever had. And that begets postpartum depression. I mean, I'd say
describing almost like step by step what happened after I had my son, including the colic. So that's why I'm just kind of like, wow.
I know people need this information. Maybe I shouldn't retire. I should get back out there and just talk about pre and postnatal nutrition. I don't have to, because I know you're going to do that job for me, you and your cohorts and stuff, so I can kind of sit back and feel gratified that the message is getting out. So that baby is the baby that's going to be subject to ADD and ADHD, because in my opinion is, and there's controversy about that, but my opinion is that most ADD and ADHD is adrenal hypofunction. There's a good argument also that the thyroid's involved, but I would always the adrenals first. And I've had some great turnarounds with teenagers who were in a lot of trouble just by getting them on good adrenal supplementation. So it's not the time to address this adrenal hypofunction is before the mom even gets pregnant, but certainly during pregnancy and post-pregnancy, it's really important, and even taking the right adrenal support while the mother's breastfeeding will do tremendous things for the baby's adrenal function. In America, the way we deal with things is we wait till we have a terrible symptom and then we try to address it,
Yeah.
And, but particularly for a woman anticipating having a baby, addressing these things in advance of conception is really the best way to do it.
I think that would make a huge difference for a lot of women. And then some of us get very down on ourselves for the experience, like it just didn't go like we thought it should go, and we somehow failed in our maternal instincts, or something there. And it's just really good information for people to have ahead of time.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not really the woman's fault, because they really don't know, and the people who you would expect to be telling them don't know and aren't telling them. This is stuff for OBGYN and the prenatal nurses should be having discussions with. They say that placebo is like between 30 and 35%. Every drug and every supplement is really placebo. People believe they're going to get better, they get better. The mind is very powerful like that. But what studies have shown is that placebo is based on the conviction of the practitioner. So if you get a doctor and he says, man, this magnesium is amazing, everybody I've given it to, it's taking care of their headaches immediately, and furthermore, it's been really wonderful for their constipation on top of that. Then you got a chance of getting the effect of the magnesium plus the placebo effect. That gets you up there in the 90% success range. But I'm sure he never did have any success with magnesium. You can't tell somebody you doubt it's going to work, and that the literature is weak, and then give it to him. First of all, with that attitude, probably half of them don't even comply. Right. So that's a little tangent, but it is really important for all practitioners, therapists included, whenever you make a recommendation that you do it with conviction and enthusiasm, because that'll really help to motivate the client, and patients of doctors and clients of nutritional therapists, and it'll increase your placebo. Nothing wrong with placebos. Get stuff.
Yeah, that's totally true. That the attitude and the approach can make a huge difference with people. I just want to say like a huge thank you for you doing this. As you told people earlier, you're semi-retired and kind of moving into a different role, and I just really super appreciate you taking the time to do this. That your work is continuing, and the NTA just continues to grow. I know that it was a huge change in my life, in being able to finally heal from Lyme disease and things like that. And we're just going to continue to share these things with people and find them FNTPs they can go to. And so don't you worry about that.
So we're probably approaching 7,000 nutritional therapists around the world. I think we really are making a difference. I mean, I think the paradigm is changing. There's so much more awareness. There's more awareness to do it. I mean, let's face it, we have a lot of work to go. And,
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty much what I about pregnancy. But I did want to put one little mention in about epigenetics and how very important it is to remember that that our health is the result of what we do, but it's also the result of what our parents did and our grandparents did. And so really, when I started this business 27 years ago, we were one generation of Pottinger's people earlier. And I really have seen when people don't address these issues that are related to these high glycemic diets and stress and toxicity, it not only hurts them, but if you haven't had your children yet, you're hurting your unborn children and your unborn grandchildren. And so it's very important for us to remember that. And so here's a little fact that I think needs to be considered is the most important time in a child's nutritional life might not even be the 9 months before pregnancy. It might be the ages, based on a study that was done in Överkalix, Sweden, the most important time in the epigenetic transmission of our genes, either activated or unactivated, is for girls it's between 8 and 11, and for boys between 9 and 12. And that's just about a lot of times where their diet really starts to go astray. So it's really, really important for our kids to have a nutrient-dense whole food diet. It's always important, but it's particularly important during those slow growth periods of 8 to 11 for girls and 9 to 12 for boys. They're setting the genetics for the next 2 generations during that time. And that's that anybody's interested in. Well, I guess I'm pitching my book a little bit.
I was just going to mention that myself. I have a copy of it over on the shelf. Yeah, it's called Pottinger's Prophecies, and it's written obviously by Gray Graham. It's just fascinating. So especially if you really like to get into the sciencey part of the epigenetics and just kind of in the section where there's like the practical, things that you could do to change that, so people don't feel like they're so doomed to, my this runs in my family kind of thing, because we hear that all the time as practitioners. So
we can change. The genes that have been epigenetically reset to express ill health can be epigenetically reset to express good health, and that's so we should never give up hope. I mean, I think there is a bit of a disadvantage, a very clear disadvantage for people whose parents and grandparents have had poor diets. But this Pottinger proved with his cats, we can turn it all around, and we can work ourselves back to the state of perfection that we were meant to have, that God meant for us to have.
Yes, yeah, bodies are amazing. So thank you so much, Gray, for joining me. This is just going to help a lot of people.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.